Everybody is starting a podcast these days, and with good reason. It is the best excuse to have deep conversations with people you would never have access to otherwise, all because it's being recorded. Here's the thing most podcasters figure out pretty quickly. Unless your guest is like Elon Musk or Alex Hormozi or just anyone that you would put their face on a thumbnail and it would get thousands of clicks automatically, you may have a packaging problem. And 99% of podcasters don't have access to these people. They have great conversations with smart, interesting people, but nobody clicks on their video on YouTube. Not because the content is bad, but because the entry point is wrong. And believe it or not, I'm not even talking about the title or the thumbnail here. So in this video, I'm going to show you the two things that we do at Nilli Studio after being behind hundreds of podcast episodes that actually make people click. And stick around because the second one, almost nobody's doing it and it could really make a difference for you. First of all, we have what I'm sure you've seen a ton on YouTube. It's the highlight compilation. This is something that one of the biggest podcasts, Diary of a CEO, is doing, and he's doing very well, and they're leaning into. But there is an art to it. Most people, when they try to do a highlight compilation, they're gonna go and pull the most exciting clips, moments where the guest is laughing, is having emotions, things that the editor or the host himself thinks is important, funny, relevant to the discussion, and they're gonna use just a generic title. This can work for some people. It definitely can work when the guest is big enough and they have a big audience on X, on YouTube already. But the right way to do it, and the way we do it at Nilli Studio when we're faced with a client that wants to have these highlight compilation, is we watch the whole interview and then we select the topic that we think is the most time sensitive, but also the most trending, either on Twitter, on YouTube, or just generally on the internet. And now we know this is the angle that we're gonna use to build the trailer. Now the trailer, we're gonna go over the interview again, and we're gonna pull every relevant clips based on the angle that we chose for the title. Every clip must reinforce the single angle that we picked, nothing else. So again, these clips are not chosen randomly. They're chosen because they match the angle that we picked for the title and the thumbnail. This is very important. And why are we doing that? Because the trailer does not just tease the episode. It's used to sell the specific angle that's being packaged. And this specific angle is not random also. It's very relevant to what's trending right now in the market or what is trending based on this particular guest. If he did a tweet that went super viral, well, it might be relevant to mold the interview around that tweet, that angle, that topic. So I want to show you an example of what we did for one of our clients around a year ago. So this podcast is with Jeff Walton, which is a prominent person in the Bitcoin space on Twitter right now. About a year ago, he wasn't as famous, so we couldn't just lean on his face or his name in the title to just move the needle for us. So this performed very well. It's a 11 times outlier, and it got us 36,000 views. So we did pick something that at the time, of course, a little bit less right now, but at the time this was very hot. People were super bullish on MicroStrategy. So this title worked really well for us. I don't think I would pick the same angle today. Let's watch quickly how we molded the trailer based on this title that says how MicroStrategy will hit 1 trillion.
I think MicroStrategy hits $1 trillion in 2025. I think at $1 trillion, we see like a mean reversion, and it could happen quick.
Let's pause here. Now, you see he's reinforcing what we picked in the title. So people click because they wanted to know how MicroStrategy, or what's the reason behind MicroStrategy hitting $1 trillion. And you automatically know that he's gonna attack that angle and he's gonna talk about that, and it's not clickbait because it opens and you see the guest talking about exactly what you clicked on the video for. This is super, super valuable.
I mean, we could go from 100 billion to $1 trillion, I think pretty quickly. I personally think the volatility is going to increase. I think we're going to see bigger amplitudes up and down moving forward into 2025. It's going to freak people out. The mania that we saw in November is going to look like a drop in the bucket At a $400,000 Bitcoin price, I mean, who's selling? Like, if you really think this is a new economic monetary ecosystem where you can use it as collateral to facilitate and finance your life in different ways, what's the point of selling? This is one of the really interesting parts in my perspective is
here we did a little cliffhanger, which I think is super valuable, especially when you're talking with experts and they're trying to drop some knowledge. You know, you don't want to sell everything in a trailer also because you want to leave it, you know, the most crusty part for the interviews, but you're teasing people. So let's just finish it here.
If there's a strategic Bitcoin reserve, we're going to see the price of Bitcoin go up, and there could be a game theory phenomenon happening where, you know, you've got nation states competing for adding more Bitcoin to balance sheet. And I suspect we're going to see 20 plus companies add Bitcoin to their balance sheet in 2025, potentially even more.
Now, I like this example. Of course, don't get me wrong, his predictions were not super accurate, but it's just to show you how we sold this thing and how people, after seeing this trailer, are like, okay, he's actually going to give his expert take about how it's going to hit 1 trillion. So people are going to watch, they're going to watch longer, and it's going to affect the algorithm and it's going to push it because the algorithm now knows that if the average view duration is a lot longer than usual, the content is great and it brings value to viewers, so they're going to push it even more. That's one of the options that a lot of people are choosing. What I like about the trailers is that it's easy to cut them and just tease them on Twitter, maybe on Instagram or any other platforms, and then direct people to YouTube to watch the full thing or to the RSS audio. I think this is a great strategy, and it's really good to just, you know, spread the word on social media after and just repurpose this trailer for greater reach. And we've been doing them a lot at Nilli Studio. We have tens of those trailers in the banks. It's been working great for our clients. And if you want us to pull these angles for your show, the link is below in the description, right below the like button. So go check this out and reach out, and maybe we can see how we can help you with something similar and help you grow your podcast too, like we've been doing with a ton of our clients. Now let's move to option 2, because I think this is something that almost no one does, and it has the potential to move the needle for your podcast even more for that single reason. But also it makes the show more fun. It gives more personality to you as the host. And almost nobody's doing it except one person that I've seen doing it in the most efficient way. I think it worked for him very much. I'm going to show you just in a few seconds who it is. And this is the open question. What happens now is we don't have a trailer. We open the podcast with a bold question that is open. We want the guest to just riff on it for a few seconds or a few minutes at least. We don't just want him to answer yes or no. But also this question is not going to be about his background. You're not going to ask about his story in general and just let him go in any direction. What you want is maybe pull one of his most controversial tweet or post anywhere on LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, on YouTube, one of his most controversial video. And then you kind of frame a question around that and you just drop it there. You kind of surprise the guest. So it opens with like the real emotion of the guest and the real take on the topic, but also with them just riffing on the question and trying to find their way and trying to dissect what they have in their mind based on this topic. But the beautiful part is you will use this question in the titles, of course, because now you don't have a 60-second trailer. You're kicking off your interview with this question. So this is what needs to be sold in the title and the thumbnail and then reinforced in the first few seconds. And it worked just as great because you're getting into podcast and the meat of what you clicked for right away. The beautiful part about this is that it feels even more genuine. There's no flashy trailer, there's no hype, there's just a questions that demands an answer. And then of course, eventually in the interview, you want to ask about his background, how he got there. But this can be weaved in later in the interview through different questions, not just necessarily tell me about you and tell me how you came into space, right? It can be a lot more about asking specific questions and just asking, how'd you get that idea? What book did you read to get there, you know? But never open with like the guest background. That has been done and redone, and it's never what you're using in the title anyway. You know you're gonna have this big chunk of 4, 5, 6, 10 minutes of the guest talking about his background in the start, and this is not what is interested in people. Because why would you want to listen to someone's background if you're not even sure you want to invest yourself into getting to know that person? You want to hear their opinion, then you disagree or agree, and then maybe you're telling yourself, okay, I'm going to invest myself into these conversations. I want to hear more. Now let's go over the guy that I think does it best. It's Chris Williamson. This one, for example. David Friedberg is not, I didn't know the guy. Apparently he has close to 500K followers on X. I was not familiar with him. I don't think he has a face that would make people click, not super recognizable. Maybe a lot of people know him, but like not enough that he's like a superstar that would get millions of clicks, right? And then you can see the title that he used. Everything is about to collapse, but not how you think. It kind of sells you that he has an opinion and ideas on this topic that everything is about to collapse that you haven't heard before. And let's see how Chris Williamson opens the podcast.
You've said the future is going to be epic. You're really optimistic about it when a lot of people are pretty worried. How come?
I think people have had...
Well, first of all, I thought he was going to be pessimistic. He actually just mentioned that he's super optimistic, which is refreshing and good to hear. But you can tell, like, there was no trailer here. It just opens softly with the questions, and then people want to hear more. The reason why people click on the video is because they want to know what he thinks about this topic. Everything is about to collapse, but not how you think. So this, I think, is great, and you can go through all of Modern Wisdom's episodes, and I think he's doing a great job at this. It's a great way to differentiate yourself, and it's also a great way to just keep things lean and maybe being able to release footage faster. But also, it does definitely require more research beforehand. Most podcast channels are sitting on great conversations that nobody's watching. Not because the content is bad, but because the first 60 seconds, the entry point is just wrong. So I gave you two options that you might want to put in practice. You might want to try doing the highlight compilations, but again, the clips have to be chosen based on the angle that you're choosing for the titles. So you might want to choose option one, which is the highlight compilation / trailer. This is highly shareable on other social media. It can redirect people, funnel people to your actual video. This is great, but the clips have to be chosen based on the angle that you chose for the title itself. Or you can just use this new refreshing version of opening a podcast that I really, really like. It's a single question, cold open, no trailer, but the question itself is the angle that you're using for the title and the thumbnail. And this is actually exactly what we do at Nilli Studio. We think about this every day. We are obsessed with YouTube packaging, YouTube strategizing. But the beautiful part is we also offer post-production. So everything that's editing, thumbnail, SEO, description, show notes. We also help you distribute, we distribute your content on all platforms for you. So it's an all-in-one content production that comes with this expertise that we have, having worked with tons and tons of content creators and brands, also being behind a ton of podcasts. So if you're a content creator or you're running a podcast and you're not getting the result that you're hoping for, check out the link in the description. Send us a quick DM. Just book a call with me at the bottom of our website. Send me an email. I'll be happy to have a look. And if we're a good match, I'd be happy to work with you. So I hope this content was useful for you. If it was, hit the little like button and the subscribe button. And I'll see you on the next one.